Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and welcome to yet another Book of the Month reading vlog. If you are not new to my channel, then you know this is a recurring series I do as an avid member of Book of the Month. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I'm just a regular old member that really enjoys the service, and I like to make reading vlogs of me reading the books that I pick almost every month. This helps me not only stay on top of my Book of the Month TBR and make sure that I don't just collect them and not read them, and also helps me get reviews out relatively quickly so that anyone else who is a Book of the Month member can determine whether they want to add these books onto their next boxes, or if they've already picked them, whether they want to pick them up next and read them or not read them or whatever. In December, I did pick 3 books, so I've got 3 books to knock out this month. The good news is I am very, very excited for all of them and have really high expectations. So the books that I picked this month, the first one is my main pick. I picked All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. This is a mystery thriller. This author's first book, called A Flicker in the Dark, was actually also a Book of the Month pick about a year ago. I really enjoyed that one. I think I gave it 4 stars and was excited for her follow-up book, and it's finally here. I don't know a ton about the plot of this book. I think it's about a child who is stolen or kidnapped, and that's a very big fear of mine, so I'm interested to see what I think about this book, and generally hopes are just high that I enjoy this book as much as this author's previous book. I know a lot of other people have been highly anticipating this book, so I'm just excited to get it read. Then a book I added on in December is called Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is an adult contemporary romance, I believe. I think it's like a second chance romance, which is usually one of my favorite tropes. And I've heard that it is very emotional, which is definitely a buzzword for me when it comes to romance. I love emotional romances between full-grown mature adults. Oh yeah, actually I think this is about a married couple who gets divorced or separates and is now coming back together. So I definitely think this is going to be emotional and hard-hitting, right up my alley. I've had my eye on this book as an anticipated release for this year for a while, so I was very excited to see Book of the Month have it as an add-on option. And then the third book that I picked from Book of the Month this month was one of their Book of the Year finalists. BFF members get to pick one of the finalists to get for free in the month of December. So I picked the one that I had not read yet and was most excited about and interested in, and that is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I believe this book is a historical fiction that has to do with, I think, like an inheritance for a grandmother or someone who passes down like a recipe for black cake, and within it holds secrets or something like that. Because this was a Book of the Year finalist, I know that a lot of people voted for it, obviously, as their favorite Book of the Month book of the year. And since it has been announced as a finalist, I've also seen a lot of people I personally know say that they really enjoyed this book. So very high hopes for this one as well. I feel like this vlog is going to be a really good one because I have 3 very different books in 3 different genres, 3 different vibes, but hopes and expectations are super high for all of them. And if all goes according to plan, that means I could have 3 new favorite books here. It could also mean we're in for a lot of disappointment, but let's not put that energy into the universe. That's not what's going to happen. I am going to go ahead and get started with All the Dangerous Things as my first read. I have a copy of this audiobook through Libro FM as well, as part of their ALC program where they gift audiobooks to book reviewers and influencers. So before this was even a Book of the Month pick, I knew I would be reading it in the near future. We have a lot to do this week. It's a busy week. My daughter turns 3 this coming weekend, so we're having a birthday party for her. We're having family come to town and stay with us. So our house needs a lot of work, and I'm going to be cleaning tonight. So that's why I'm like rushing through this intro and just want to get to putting that audiobook on, cleaning my house. Hopefully I will be back very shortly with kind of an introduction to this book to tell you my initial thoughts, how I'm feeling about it, and maybe a little bit better of a synopsis, since my understanding of this book so far is pretty vague. Let's turn on the B-roll. You can see my mess of a house turn into hopefully a lot less of a mess, and just get into the vlog. Okay, time for an update on All the Dangerous Things. I did start this and I am 46% of the way through the audiobook. I have not looked to see exactly what page that puts me on, but the book is like 320 pages long, so like 160 would be halfway. So I'm probably 150 pages or less into this book, and so far it's okay. There's not much for plot in this book. We're following this mother who had a toddler, and one night when her and her husband were sleeping in their bed, their toddler was taken from his crib, and since then she's just been trying to figure out what happened to her son. And kind of the other thing related to this is that she hasn't been able to sleep since then, so she literally has not gotten a full night of sleep in the full year since that happened. And we're kind of just following her, living her life. Most of her life is dedicated to finding her son, which makes sense. She is like a public speaker, and she's gone and done events talking about her experience, and she is kind of using that as like a gateway to see if she can pick out someone who looks suspicious who might have done it. So that's kind of questionable. And now she's also hopped onto this podcast where she's talking about her experience through this podcast, and the podcast host thinks maybe they can try solve the mystery or something. I don't know, like clearly the mystery is trying to find the son, but it's going about it in kind of a weird way because we are only following this mother. She doesn't have police involved. They were involved at the start of the investigation, but it's been pretty much determined at this point that the boy is probably dead, so the police have kind of gotten off the case. So I don't really know where this is gonna go. There aren't many other characters. We also do get flashback scenes of our main character when she was younger. It seems like she used to have a sister, not sure where that sister is now. And they're talking about this main character even when she was younger seemed to have some sleep issues and like sleepwalking issues, so maybe that is going to come into play as well. So far I'm enjoying it well enough. It's reading really quickly, which I appreciate. I just love a thriller that you can just put on and like zoom through. It's holding my attention, I'm enjoying it, and I'm excited to get some answers. The only thing I wanted to point out as kind of a critique for this book is something that I find interesting for it being not an author's debut novel. I'm finding a couple of, I don't know if they're exactly mistakes, but like things I'm picking out in the writing that I would have assumed would have been corrected in editing or would have been taken out. Let me give some examples because I did write them down. One thing is she used a phrase where it seemed like someone was looking through her instead of at her. She used that like twice within a very close vicinity of each other, which I thought was odd because that's a pretty specific phrase. And then also when she was talking about this one character, she walked by and this guy was sitting on his porch. Okay, my camera just died, so I'm gonna finish this out on my phone. Sorry for the angle change and probably slight sound changes. But anyway, she said about that guy, she was like, I didn't realize what was weird about that guy on his porch until it hit me, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next chapter was her the next day. She was like walking around her kitchen and she was still pondering back to that incident the day before. And she was like, I didn't realize why that situation was weird until it dawned on me XYZ. And I'm like, you already realized what was weird about that. You just told me last chapter. So it like repeated itself in the very next chapter, which I just thought was strange. And again, that's the type of thing that I feel like is more understandable in maybe a debut novel, but for a book like this, where the first book had a lot of hype and attention, I feel like this book would have gone through more extensive editing, or like the author would have been more experienced. I don't know, let me know your opinion on things like that. It's not bothering me to the point of like hindering my enjoyment of the book, or like I would rate it lower because of those things. I just thought it was interesting to point out because I don't come across little nitpicky things like that very often in books. But it feels to me like this could have been edited more. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this book technically doesn't come out until January, so I wonder if it's possible for this book to be edited again before it's traditionally released. Since Book of the Month got it for like an early release, I wonder if it's kind of like how in early review copies for reviewers, like ARC copies, there oftentimes are still edits needing to be made on the book. Not sure, maybe this is kind of the same thing, but still seems weird because it is a Book of the Month finished copy. Oh, and one more thing. I was watching Elizabeth's video earlier from Reading Riley. She was talking about her anticipated releases for the next quarter, and this book was on her list, but she mentioned that she didn't love this author's first book very much, and it was because, or one of the things she didn't enjoy so much was in that first book called A Flicker in the Dark, the author said the word flicker a whole bunch of times, and actually in this book, she also said the phrase, "a flicker in the dark." So I do want to throw it out there that if that bothered you in the first book, it's already present within the first 50% of this book. I haven't noticed any use of the word dangerous or the phrase all the dangerous things yet. I mean, one time I feel like makes sense if it's the title of the book for it to be included somewhere in the book, but if it's a recurring thing, I can see how that would be annoying. So I'll let you know, I'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, I'm basically just gonna go ahead and finish this book. Hopefully at some point today, then I can come back and update you with my final thoughts and get on to the rest of the books for this vlog. Okay, hello, long time no talk. It has been about a week since I've updated this vlog. It's been a roller coaster around here, a lot of things happening. We had company in town earlier than expected for my daughter's birthday party, so that consumed like our home life and my reading and vlogging and editing time. Preparing for my daughter's birthday party was definitely full force last week. It went really well. I think I included a few clips of the prep for that and then of the party itself. Very successful, very fun. That night after the birthday party though, my daughter, birthday girl, ended up throwing up the whole night, which we at the time assumed was too many cupcakes, too much sugar, too much just general excitement making her stomach act up. And then the stomach bug also ended up hitting my husband and me on the next day. So we have also been recovering from like a 24-hour flu situation. So like I said, lots of ups and downs. I am feeling much better now. I'm feeling good about the birthday party being over and now just having Christmas to focus on. But first, of course, is taking care of this reading vlog, finishing the books that I want to finish. So first reading update I have to give is that I finished All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. Unfortunately, I was let down by this book. I think this book has a lot of good elements, and actually the author's note at the back of this book solidified that in that she addressed that she really wanted to discuss mental health within motherhood. I think that's a great discussion. I have read several books on the topic. I'm not sure if a thriller where the mother is made out to be an unreliable narrator is the best way to promote like respecting other mothers' mental health, because this did definitely paint our mother as unreliable, but I can respect the intention. That being said, the fact that I have read so many other books similar to this, and specifically thrillers similar to this premise, I think hindered my enjoyment a bit because it was much less novel. I think there are only so many twists or reveals that can come out of a situation like this, so I wasn't really shocked by the story, though if it's the first time you're reading a story like this, potentially it could shock you and could really work for you. So for that reason, I wouldn't not recommend it. But to me, this felt a lot like Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier, The Couple Next Door by Sherry Lapina. It also had vibes of The Push by Ashley Audrain and Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. And all of those books I just mentioned, I think I gave 3 or 4 stars. So I didn't hate any of them, but also none of them are all-time favorites. And that's where this one is landing too. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Nothing to absolutely hate about it, but not a new all-time favorite. And the last nitpicky thing I will talk about, I think I already mentioned in my midway update, but I think this book could just use another round of editing. There was the situation of the same thing happening in 2 back-to-back scenes. That still bugs me, and the fact that she used the phrase flicker in the dark twice and the word flicker 2 more times on top of that, it just felt like a crutch word and a crutch phrase. I don't know if that was intentional and it's the author trying to plant like Easter eggs or something within the book, but I just found it distracting. Every single time I read it, I was like, oh, there we go again. And I think that me pointing it out in a video for everyone who hasn't read it yet is probably only going to draw more attention to it if and when you read it in the future. So I apologize for that, but maybe you can just like set yourself up and say, I'm not going to be bothered by the word flicker, and then you'll be set up for success. It really surprised me that that fell through the cracks and this ended up reading so much like a debut when it was a highly anticipated follow-up book. So definitely a bummer. I hope I'm not tainting this book for other people who pick it up in the future, because I know it is so highly anticipated. I just have to be honest with my thoughts though and say that I was definitely disappointed by it, and I think I prefer A Flicker in the Dark to this book. But I will definitely keep an eye out for Stacey Willingham in the future, and more books that she puts out, I'm sure I will pick them up and continue giving them a try, and I hope that they get better and better than this one. So that brings me to my second book for this video, which I've already started, Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I'm pretty sure I said at the beginning of this video that I was really excited for this book. I had high expectations. It's been compared to books that I have loved in the past, and so far it is totally living up to those expectations. I am quite a ways into it already. I'm on page 210 out of like 380, 390, so over halfway, and it's everything I was expecting and a little bit more. I'm connecting so hard with these characters. This is an emotional adult romance between two characters who are divorced. They've been divorced for about 2 years at the point where this book picks up. They have multiple children together, and when we first meet them, they are kind of rocking the co-parenting thing. They actually also own a business together, so they're like navigating their business discussions. They are passing the children back and forth, and everything is generally good. But they definitely have unresolved feelings for each other because the main reason they were broken apart was a tragedy. I'm not really sure what's considered a spoiler when it comes to a book like this, but I do think what happened to them could potentially be really triggering to somebody who's gone through a similar experience. So I'm going to go ahead and put the content warnings that I would attach to this book in the description box. I'll have it clearly labeled at the bottom, so you don't have to read it if you don't want to. But I think that if somebody reading this book has gone through a similar experience, it could absolutely be really harmful and really triggering. So I want to make sure I'm putting it out there that this is very emotional because of what this couple goes through. Apart from that tragedy that this couple has experienced, it's also just an emotional story because it's talking about this married couple who has been divorced now for a couple of years, and they're both well within each other's lives, and they're having to see each other start to move on. And that, to me, as a married person, has just been really hard to read. Like trying to imagine the person that you have said vows to, you've married, you thought you were gonna be with forever, imagining them starting to love someone else is the most heartbreaking thing to me. And I just really appreciate that this book is pulling out all of those emotions. It feels very real. I'm finding the characters quite mature. The female especially, I'm really connecting with. She has made it very clear that she has been going to therapy lately, and that's been really helping her. And I love her talking about her growth through that process and how it's helped her heal as an individual. And while her life is not perfect and she still has these unresolved feelings, she herself is doing a lot better, recovering from her depression and moving forward. I'm loving that. The guy in this relationship I am feeling is less mature. I'm definitely seeing more flaws with him, and I'm actually loving the conversation that's happening around therapy because he has made it very clear that he doesn't want to go to therapy. He doesn't think it could help him, and I think we're going to see that change, and we may actually see the benefits of therapy through this book, which I feel like is just a great message. So I am so excited to continue reading the rest of this book. I am hoping I will just fly through it. I'm hoping I continue enjoying it as much as I am currently. I have a feeling I will, but you never know. I will check in again once I have finished it and let you know my final thoughts, and then we will get into the third and final book for this vlog. All right, update time. Many days have passed, like a whole nother week since the last time I updated, maybe even more than that. Christmas has passed,
New Year's has passed. You know, that week before Christmas and New Year's where nothing gets done. That happened. Nothing got done, including reading. So this reading vlog definitely, to me, feels more drawn out than I'm used to. I know from your end, you can probably not tell at all, but it feels weird to me and it feels worth explaining, even though it's probably not. But I am back with an update. Update number one is that I finished Before I Let Go. It was everything that I wanted from a romance book. I loved this couple, and as hard as it was reading about that experience of them losing each other and seeing each other like start to move on and really struggling with that, it made it that much sweeter for them to reconnect and have like those butterfly type feelings again for each other. Since that's not something that usually happens with married couples, obviously you get into your routine and you're not necessarily any less in love with each other, but you usually don't have those like butterfly feelings after a certain amount of time. And it was fun reading them having those again for each other. I would say that that was something kind of unexpected for me that I didn't know was going to happen at the end of this book, that I really enjoyed reading. I also loved the continued conversations about therapy and how the different members within this family each had their own kind of different journeys they had to go on with healing and therapy and self-healing and working on their relationships with each other. Very interesting and realistic, and a really great portrayal, I think, of this type of situation, which is so complicated and uncommon, and yet was very nicely depicted in this book. So I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It ended up on my best books of the year list, which was also a very pleasant surprise. I knew I was gonna love this book, but I didn't know how much. And I love that I loved it enough for it to be in my top 10 of 2022. So that was great. Definitely a great book to be one of my last few reads of the year. And then my next update is that I have started Black Cake. It is 2023 now, so this is actually my first book that I'm reading in the new year. I'm around 50% into it and I'm really enjoying it so far, which I was hoping and expecting to, but you know, it's always nice when a book that's been super hyped up actually lives up to that hype. This is a book that I've seen a lot of people say they love. It also was a contender for the Book of the Month, Book of the Year award. It didn't win, but it was one of the finalists. So a lot of people love this book. I didn't really know anything about the plot going into it, so it's been interesting learning that. This is basically about these 2 siblings named Byron and Benny. They are brother and sister. They are fully grown and their mother has just passed away. They've had kind of a strained relationship with each other and with their mother lately, so it was a really unfortunate time of loss where they don't feel like they really had closure with each other and as a family. So they're struggling with that. But then also after that, Byron and Benny get a phone call from their mother's lawyer or whatever that they need to meet and talk about what their mother has left them. And it turns out she left them a black cake and a voice recording. The black cake is very significant in their family, long tradition of their family members making it. And like a long passed down recipe. And then the voice recording dives into their mother's life and basically a whole secret life that she had that they had no idea about. So they are discovering things about their mother and their family and their history that they were not aware of, and completely changes their perception on a lot of things. This book is told in a really interesting and I think effective way, where it's told in almost like vignettes, where it's like 1 to 2 page entries that follow different people at different times from different perspectives, and will like give you a glimpse into one thing and then switch perspectives. It definitely keeps the pace moving. This book is reading really quickly, which I think is great for a historical fiction. Sometimes that's a genre that can feel really slow and like it's dragging, but this does not feel that way at all. And it's also been really interesting in this book tying together the different characters and the different perspectives. It does go back into the past, and at the very beginning it was a little confusing about like, who are these characters? Why do I care about them? How do they tie into Benny and Byron's story? But it didn't take very long for it all to come together and for you to kind of realize, oh, this is the importance of that story being told, and really being interested in seeing where it's all going. What is this story going to culminate into? What's the point of telling all of this? It's very interesting and surprising along the way, but what are we getting at? That's what I'm very curious about. I'm about 50% of the way through this book, and I am just excited to fly through this one, finish it, let you know my final thoughts, get my first read out of the way for 2023, and I really hope that I end up enjoying it as much as the last one. But of course, I will let you know once I finished and what my final thoughts are. Okay, it is later the same day and I have finished Black Cake. The second half of this book flew by just like the first half. And again, I was just pleasantly surprised by that because I stayed engrossed in the story for pretty much the rest of it. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. I really did love the complexity of this story and how it was told and the life of this mother. It's extraordinary and that's undeniable. And again, the pace of this book and just the fact that I was able to fly through it and it didn't feel like I was slogging through a boring historical fiction, I think says a lot. The only reasons I'm gonna give it 4 stars and not a full 5 stars is one, because I thought the second half was less interesting than the first half. I feel like a lot of the secrets were revealed in the first half, and that's great because it does really pull your attention in and it made me interested in reading the rest of the book. But the final kind of reveals of this book and how it all came together, nothing shocked me as much as moments earlier in the book. So that was a little bit disappointing. And kind of similarly is the book is really just about these characters and this mother's life and how it impacted like her parents' lives and her children's lives. I just, for some reason, have never really deeply connected to intergenerational stories and stories that follow characters for decades. And this was like as good as I could possibly be, but for some reason, I'm not feeling that 5-star feeling. You know what I mean? It's just not quite there, especially when I compare it to my feelings reading Before I Let Go. When I started this book and when I finished this book and all the way through it, it had the 5-star feeling the entire time. This one just didn't. So while I can say it is objectively an amazing book, it's gonna be 4 stars. And honestly, I am still very happy with that. And I think this was a very successful video. We did end up with a 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star, and I will take that. I'm glad I read the most disappointing one first, and then I got to have some pretty incredible reads to finish it out. And I'm excited to continue doing Book of the Month reading vlogs into 2023. I did get gifted more credits for Christmas, so I'm gonna keep my membership going and I'll keep these videos going. Please let me know if you enjoy these videos and or find them helpful in any way if you're a Book of the Month member, or even if you're not, maybe you still find it entertaining or helpful. And also let me know if you have read any of these books, what were your thoughts, or if you haven't read them yet, have I made you want to or not want to pick them up? But other than that, I don't think I have anything else. So thank you so much for watching this video and I will see you in my next one.